magazine publishing or in coffee houses. Of course, public museums evolved out of coffee houses, and you just go on and on and on and on. And I think that's because there was something, well, partially I think that's because people were drinking coffee for the first time. So, as I mentioned in the talk, up until that point, the default beverage of people in Europe was beer during the day.
Trying to avoid getting sick from was...
Yeah, it was not a bad health choice, actually, given the alternatives. But all of a sudden, this boiled water that was caffeinated comes into the culture, both in the form of tea and coffee, really in a very short amount of time. And all of a sudden, the culture shifts from being, mildly intoxicated all the time to being slightly caffeinated all the time. And there's a giant flowering of intellectual activity that happens. I think that's related to this. But more to the point, to your idea of the network here, it is that there was something about the coffee house space where people would come together and think in a network and trade ideas. And by definition, it was kind of a multidisciplinary space. It was not people organized in an office or an academic department. It was people with an eclectic set of interests who were getting together and hanging out and sharing ideas. And that is just a very powerful model for where good ideas come from and where innovation comes from, is when you get people together in an open-ended way, having a conversation that maybe doesn't have a clear objective to it, but through kind of bantering and through building those kinds of networks, that is where the most interesting things start to emerge. And so what is the 21st century equivalent of the coffee house? And part of it is happening, I think, on the web and in social media, but it's also there are parts of social media where that is not happening. And so a lot of what I write about is trying to take that ethos and think about, how do we update it for the current day.
You mentioned how possibly your art of giving a TED talk had improved. Yeah, so that's really interesting and important, I think, because there's a problem that most important ideas actually struggle to find their hook into people's attention. So talk a bit about how you can make that work, because I think this could be incredibly useful for anyone who cares about something. How do you turn it into a story that will command people's attention?
When it gets to, so much of what I try to do in my work, whether it's in a talk like that or through the books, is to try and figure out a way, narratively, through storytelling, to create environments or stories where in some